We are on page 88, if you would like to follow along, in Shaar, Habitachon. We are starting to discuss the fifth prerequisite of having trust in Hashem. The fifth introduction, Sheizbar etzlo ki hashlomas hadvarim hamischadshim be'olam hazeh la'acher hayetzira hu b'shnei dvarim. We have to understand that when Hashem wants to accomplish something in this world, that He accomplishes them with two things after the creation. So, meaning when Hashem created the world, He created it in a certain way. After that initial creation, 5,785 years ago, if Hashem wants something to happen in the world, He brings it out differently. Echad mehem, the first way. The first thing is Hashem makes a decree. He wants something to happen. The second, Sibos u'mitzuyim mehem krevim mehem rechaikim mehem niglim mehem nistarim. The second thing is Hashem sets up a process of cause and effect, whether the cause is very close or very far, whether it's revealed or whether it's hidden, to make the thing happen. So there's two ways that Hashem brings something out in the world. The first way was the initial creating of the world, when He said, Yehi or, let there be light, and there was light. Right? Hashem just said something and it came. Creation ex nihilo, for those Latin speakers.
That? Nihilo.
Creation ex nihilo means creation from nothing. Hashem created the world from nothing. Now that the world already exists, let's say Hashem wants something to happen in the world. So first what Hashem does is He makes a gzeira. He says this should happen. And then He doesn't make something from nothing. He just orchestrates causes and effects in this world that something should occur. This cause to this effect, and it could be a series of cause and effect over hundreds of years. It could be over 5 minutes. It could be something that we understand, something we don't understand, but that's how He does it. Now He's going to give an example. By the way, thank you to Steve Turlin for sponsoring the breakfast cookies. Everyone,
thank you.
That's not true. That's still.
So you brought them here. What do you mean? It's a great sponsorship opportunity.
Enjoy.
Okay.
Please take.
The Dimyan Hasibos Hakrovis. Now He's going to give examples of causes that are close and causes that are far. This is let's talk about taking water out from the earth, like from a well. When you take water out from a kli, using a vessel from a well. This is very sort of relevant to Menalpin. Menalpin used to have a ton of mills. Oh, thank you to Rabbi Braun for sponsoring the kokash cake and the rugelach, whatever, brownies. So back in Menalpin, actually, I don't know if you mean this, according to some shitas, Menalpin means land of flowing bread in ancient Lenape, because there were a lot of mills here that produced bread. So you had these wheels that powered the mills. So this is sort of similar. This is talking about a wheel that had buckets on the end to take out water from the well. So what's the close cause? The close cause is the bucket that goes into the water to take out the water from the well. The faraway cause, ha'adam shehu kaisher ha'be'ema, is the man that he ties the animal, ela galgal, to the wheel, umeniyaso lahalos hamayim metachtios haber el panei aretz. There was like an ox that had a rope that was attached to the wheel to get the wheel going, and the man would hit the ox. So hitting the ox, that's the faraway cause to get the water out of the well. Now all the reasons that are between, the causes that are between the man and the vessels, mitzuyim, the intermediaries, ben shnei advarim, between these two things, the wheel itself and the animal, the rope, those are intermediary causes. If something would happen to one of these reasons on these cars that we mentioned, then you wouldn't get the water out of the well if something happened to one of these reasons, causes. Same thing by everything else. That if Hashem wants to bring something, when Hashem wants to bring something into the world, they only come into existence when Hashem puts all of those causes and effects into the world. Right? So if he's just giving an example of something that we can relate to very easily, of a cause and effect system. He's saying the same thing if Hashem wants, two countries, I don't give an example, whatever it is. If Hashem wants a hurricane to happen, let's say, Chas v'shalom. So he puts in certain things in the weather systems, he causes that, so it's all going to come together. And if one of those causes were missing, then it wouldn't come into effect. Kamosha Amar, like it says, V'lo niskenu alilos, he has the count of causes. V'amar gedol ha'etza v'rov ha'alilos, he is great in counsel, and he's the master of causes. V'amar, it says, Ki ha'etza sivu me'im Hashem. He says that the reason is from Hashem, so he brings all these verses that Hashem causes everything to happen. V'im tiana tzibos nadaros, if these causes were absent, b'chlal, lo tikamar yitzis dover mina pa'ulos ativios al geder avaya, these things would never come into existence. Now we're going to address, we've been talking about, according in this version, about 90 pages about having trust in Hashem, faith in God, that everything's going to work out for us, and that Hashem's going to provide for us. And now the big question, which we've mentioned many, many times, we've hinted to, if so, why do we have to work for a living? Why do we have to put in effort in this world? Why do we have to rely, to some extent, on our own devices to make a living? Right? These cookies in front of us didn't just make themselves. Someone had to make the cookies. Someone had to buy the cookies. So why did Hashem make a world where, on one hand, we're supposed to have trust in Him, but on the other hand, we're supposed to put in effort called hishtadlus? So He's going to give two reasons. I would just like to do the first one this week, and if you want to know the second one, you have to come back next week. And we see someone needs food, someone needs to eat. You put food in front of somebody, you have cookies in front of him. If you don't put in the effort to actually pick up the cookie, put it in your mouth and chew it, you're still going to be hungry. So even in that sense, we have to put in effort to eat. And Hashem didn't just make that I could daven to Hashem, that I not be full, that I not be hungry, and that I'm satiated. Even to that extent, I have to put in the effort to, put my hand, take the food, whatever. And if you're very tired, that can be very difficult. Also, someone is very thirsty, he has to do the same thing. But all the more so, all the more so if you need to still prepare the food, if you need to betchina, you need to crush the wheat, valisha, you need to knead the wheat, va'afia, and you need to cook it and everything similar to this. V'yoser gilgul mizeh, it's even harder if you have to make money in order to buy all these ingredients, right? So we're taking it a step back and back and back and back, that you could have the cookie in front of you, that requires effort to eat. If you're owning a wheat field, you have to thresh the wheat, you have to prepare the wheat. If you need money, if you don't even have money, you have to get money to buy the seeds, to plant the thing, or to go to ShopRite or whatever it is. Furthermore, if you don't have the money to buy them, if you don't have the money, you're going to have to go work in order to get the money to thresh the wheat, to do this, right, like Hagadia. Or if you can't find a job, you're going to have to sell things to be able to get the food. So why did Hashem make it that we have to put in all this effort to satisfy our hunger and thirst, and just to make a living? The reason, so there are two reasons why God made the world, that a human being has to put an effort to find everything, to food and everything else that he needs. One of the reasons, we're just going to do one today. Hashem, in His divine wisdom, made that a soul be put in this world, and it has the option to serve Hashem or to rebel against Him. We know that we're composed of two main parts, let's say. Many more parts, but we have a soul, which our neshama, which wants to get close to Hashem, wants to do exactly what Hashem wants. It wants to study Torah all day and say Tehillim. And then we have a body, which wants the opposite. It wants to eat cookies all day. It wants to rebel against Hashem. It just wants to be lazy. And Hashem made it that there's a constant battle going on between the desires of the soul and the desires of the body. So Hashem put us in this world as a test. Hashem wants to see, are we going to make our lives to go after our soul, or are we going to use our lives to go after our body and just enhance our bodies? Are we going to spend our lives fulfilling those physical pleasures and try to get pleasure out of that, or are we going to do what Hashem wants? So therefore, the way Hashem made the world in order to test us this way, is He made things that we need that are outside of us, meaning food. We can only exist with these things that are outside of us, which are food. So now he's going to test us. The way we obtain those things we need, like food outside of us, are we going to follow his will, or are we not going to follow his will? And what's his will? The will is the Torah. Whether it's food, drink, shelter, relations, Hashem prescribed certain ways that we can obtain these things, food and shelter, and marriage. So a person needs, Hashem made human beings that we need food and shelter. So now, Hashem's asking us, are you going to obtain these things in the way that I said, the way you should do it? Let's say by not stealing, in certain times, by not working on Shabbos, by not working on Yontif, and all of these halachas, and therefore you're obtaining these things in a way that, say, shtims, that's in line with your soul, and therefore you'll be elevated? Or are you going to do these, try to obtain these things in ways that are forbidden? Are you going to work on Shabbos? Are you going to steal? Are you going to do a million other averas to obtain these things? And that is a test. So we're saying the answer is the reason that Hashem made us require these things like food, which are outside of us, is to test us and give us an opportunity to earn Olam Haba. Now, whether we attain these things, we could do everything Hashem said, but whether we're going to attain these things, have enough money for food and shelter, is only if Hashem decrees that it should be so. Right? We can put in all the effort in the world to obtain these things, but if Hashem doesn't want it to happen, it's not going to happen. Then the test becomes, well, I did everything I was supposed to do and it didn't work out. Should I start doing it ways that I'm not supposed to do? Should I violate Hashem's will? That's also a test. When and a person will have, whether he did it appropriately or not appropriately, he will get rewarded or punished based on that. There's a famous story with a Habitachon and a butcher. The butcher, there's a lot of halachas when it comes to eating kosher meat. You have to shecht it properly, and you have to check if one of the organs has something wrong with it, then it's not kosher, it's a treifa. So the butcher was very nervous. He went to the Habitachon and said, there's all these halachas, I'm worried that I'm going to mess up. And I'm going to, do an avera. I'm going to, not eat something that's not kosher. I'm going to give something to somebody else that's not kosher. So Chaim said, what do you plan to do? He says, I'm going to go into business. And he started laughing. He said, business? You don't think there's halachas there that you can mess up? You have to pay your workers on time. Yeah, everything is this very regimented halachas, just as many halachas as there are about shechting an animal properly and checking all of the organs. The same halachas apply when you are engaged in business. Now, what's the point of tests in the first place? We said Hashem wants to give us tests. Right? It sounds like our whole life is just like a quiz. Like, what's the deal? So Hashem knows if we're going to pass the test. Hashem knows everything. So this is addressed by the Ramban in these parshas of why did Hashem need to give Abraham so many tests? Right? Hashem knew if Abraham was going to pass the test. So the Ramban writes a very important yesod, very important principle, that the purpose of a test is not for the tester, but for the testee. It's for us. Because Abraham had this potential to pass these tests, let's say, to do the Akedah. But it didn't come out practically into the real world until he actually passed the test. Hashem knows if we're going to pass this test of Parnasa or not, and if we're going to do it the right way or we're not going to do it the right way. But for us, it raises us up when we pass the test. It becomes part of us. When we pass the test, that what we overcame, those challenges that we overcame, became a part of us, and it raised us up. So it's for our benefit. And Tehillim it says, to those who fear you, you gave a banner for truth's sake, Selah. The same word for test, Nisayon, is the same word as nes, as a miracle or a banner. Because a miracle, when a miracle happens, that lifts up. It's going above the normal way of physical reality. It lifts up. A banner is something that we lift up. When we have a test and we pass, it lifts us up to a whole new spiritual level. That's why tests are so important. So really, like the Mesilas Yesharim says, all of life is a test. That's why Hashem put us here. Now, again, it's not just a test like we're taking a quiz or something. It's a test in the sense that our whole lives, Hashem gave us a soul, which is a real soul, which wants to come in contact with Him and come close to God, and He also gave us a body. So we constantly have a choice. We can look at tests as an opportunity. We constantly have the opportunity to come close to Hashem. Right? If there was no body and we were just like angels, The angels, that's obvious. They always serve Hashem. They don't have any temptation not to serve Hashem. Us human beings that have a body, we have the opportunity to overcome our physical drives to serve Hashem. So every test is really an opportunity where we can grow and get closer to Hashem that no other being in the universe has. And like the Mesilas Yesharim says, everything in life is an opportunity or a test. If a person is poor, he is tempted to steal. If a person is rich, he's tempted to say, oh, I'm so wealthy, everything's going my way, I don't need to work hard, I could just chill. So every situation we find ourselves is a test. It's funny, in a way, I like, every generation also, I think, has their different tests. I was reading books about back in the day about Europe and the yeshivas in Europe, like pre-World War II. And there was a huge nisayon back in the day, a huge test to leave yeshiva and go to college to learn philosophy and to be in the Haskalah. So the Haskalah doesn't exist anymore, and I've never once in my life had a desire to leave yeshiva to go study philosophy in college. I don't know, maybe has anyone at the table ever had this Yetzer Hara, this test to overcome, to leave Torah learning to become a great philosopher. But we look at it like a joke. I never had this test, but back in the day, this was a real test that people had. This was a real Yetzer Hara. So the Yetzer Hara, he's very clever. He changes every generation. It's different for each person. Back in the day, when the people came to America, they had a test. They were going to lose their job if they didn't work on Shabbos. So Baruch Hashem, we don't have that test anymore for the most part. All right. I think a big test that we have that they didn't have is that we're very often we're very superficial with our Yiddishkeit. We just do it by rote, and we don't sit and think. We're very distracted because we have these plastic boxes that we're always looking at that distract us from the Torah. And I'm sure in a few hundred years they're going to look back wait, you had free time to learn Torah, but you didn't because you were busy looking at a little plastic box in front of you. That's crazy. Look, what kind of Yetzer Hara is that? It could be the way we're looking back at the Yetzer Hara in Europe. People look back at us and say, but for us it's real. I don't mean to diminish it. It's a real test. It's a real challenge. And every time we overcome those challenges, we get closer to Hashem. And that's the first reason that Rabbeinu Bachya is saying that we have. Why did Hashem make it that we need things that are external to us, we have to put in Ishtadlus to start a living? Because Hashem wants to give us tests and challenges to overcome so that we can get closer to Him and earn Olam Haba. And then next week we'll do the second reason why Hashem made the world